think we're live. If we're not live now, we might be live later. If we're not live, now. Yes, we're live. I'm still getting a bit of, it sounds like I was getting a bit of a buzz there from my mic. But maybe if I move it again. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how to function this thing. I need a better mic, which means you should donate to my Patreon. So I can give myself a better mic. Hello, welcome everyone. We are here again to analyze some Rebel Media content with the chat here. So we could say hi to everyone. Say hello, Vienno.
Hello.
Say hello, Elron.
Hey, what's up?
And say hello, Ken.
Hello.
Now, we're gonna do something a little bit different for fun, which is that in the past we've watched a entire clip, if you will, like a full Rebel clip. We're gonna watch some full Rebel clips today, but instead of doing the entire clip, I've chosen like smaller clips or snippets because I wanted to focus on a phenomenon that I've noticed recently when going over some of these videos. So very often when I'm analyzing Rebel content, they might say something that involves a bit more, like I'll have to go out and like research and figure stuff out. But lately, when I watch them on like the videos, they'll say something and then immediately put something on the screen that is the evidence for why they're wrong in what they are saying. And that to me is like very fascinating. But they do it more often than you would think. And it's come up before when we've done these shows. I believe the first one that we hit upon was the one where David Menzies was in the LCBO. And he had said that there was some like Freedom of Information Act that they had followed. And then immediately showed that they were denied for other reasons than what they said they denied by showing the letter their lawyers received from the LCBO. And then there was another one recently when we did the Sheila Gunn Reid video involving Operation Christmas Child, where what was it? Oh yeah, she basically lists on the screen the letter that Freedom from Religions Foundation sent out, basically indicating why this violated church and state separation. And so they put that right on the screen so you know that everything that she's saying is completely full of shit, but she'll say it anyways. So there's an element in which them doing this doesn't really matter because their fan base is still going to eat this shit up. Like, so we're going to show you that they do this all the time. But you know that even their fans are not going to pause the video and read the stupid shit that they project on their own screens. And the first video that we're going to look at is something that I had mentioned on the show, but I think it's worth showing how ridiculous this is. And on the show, I mean on the podcast. So recently on the podcast, we had talked about the COVID camps. So there's this conspiracy theory that COVID camps are being set up around Canada, and that somehow the government is going to use an excuse to like settle us all there. So we're going to watch a bit of the setup and watch a bit of I might skip over some of the Randy Hillier stuff, but we're going to watch the clip and then watch the sort of evidence that Ezra presents that there's these COVID camps that are going to be set up. And again, this is what Ezra presented to Alex Jones's audience on InfoWars when he hosted back on November 13th. All right. Prepare yourselves.
And alas, now she's in a position to actually action those items.
He's speaking about Teresa Tam.
InfoWars played this video earlier. It's a Canadian provincial politician in our great province of Ontario asking about planned quarantine facilities. Take a quick look. We're not going to play the whole thing, but here's Randy Hillier asking a question, and he got no answer about plans for quarantine facilities across Canada. Take a look.
For Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question is to the Premier. In my supplemental question yesterday, I asked this government if the people of Ontario should prepare for internment camps. In September, the federal government posted a call for expressions of interest for contractors to supply, provide, and manage quarantine isolation camps throughout every province and every territory in Canada. These quarantine isolation camps, however, are not limited to people with COVID, but provide a wide latitude for many people to be detained. Surely this government is aware of the intentions to build these isolation camps from coast to coast. And my question to the Premier is, how many of these camps will be built, and how many people does this government expect to detain?
So I'm going to pause it there for a second. So for those who don't know, so this is Queen's Park here, and this is the Ontario provincial government. Randy Hillier was a member of the Progressive Conservatives, which is our right-leaning party in Ontario. He got kicked out of their party because after a question period in Queen's Park back in 2019, where they were discussing issues surrounding the treatment of parents with children who have autism, and part of this had to do with the Conservatives were cutting their funding and doing a whole bunch of other shit. Then Randy Hillier, when he left that meeting, turned to a bunch of reporters and went, yada, 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 and then walked off. And so because of that, Doug Ford was like, that was inappropriate. Doug Ford, the leader of the Progressive Conservatives, and Randy Hillier was booted from their party. So now he's on the outside, and he's this complete... He's now gone, he was already pretty fringe, but now he's like hard conspiracy theorist who believes that now the Ontario government is in cahoots with the Liberals to build these quarantine internment camps. Is his own his own description of these things, right?
Is that not what we're doing? We're not doing that now?
Yeah. Well, he is so. Go on, Vienna.
I didn't know that's how he got kicked out of the PCs.
Yeah.
Me neither.
To clarify, also, the Progressive Conservatives are the ruling party in Ontario as well. Just because I don't think you mentioned that, for non-Canadians.
And, so he was in the ruling party, and he got kicked out because his own party didn't like him. And so with this COVID stuff, so even in his speech, so he called them internment camps, which is fucking ridiculous. And he said that, you can have some sort of, a wider latitude, so it's not just for quarantining people. And he also mentioned the thing that Ezra's going to show. So he mentioned this, request for information. And so I'm going to skip over the next part, because it's kind of long-ish and kind of boring. It's just the Progressive Conservative government responds to his question by basically saying these camps are set up to quarantine people who come into the country from, out of the country, such that so that we're not bringing COVID into Canada. Basically, you're giving people that buffer space. That's just basically how they respond to the question, which Ezra takes as them not answering the question. But we'll get to Ezra talking, because it's we don't need to hear the government responding to that.
Why we have two separate cohorts.
The answer was about coming in from foreign countries and
Ezra
quarantine. But let
this.
me show you the actual document. This is called a request for information put out by Canada's Public Works Agency. So this is a document published by the Trudeau government of Canada asking private contractors, so if you run a hotel, if you're a private prison contractor, anyone in the private sector, this was a document put up on the official government website calling for not bids at this phase, but for ideas, brainstorming. They called it a request for information. And let me read a little bit from paragraph C, where they talk about background, if you can see that there. I just want to read one sentence from about 2/3 of the way down. The sentence says, over time, the use of the designated quarantine sites, DQS, May be temporarily discontinued until needed again by the Government of Canada, or may be used for other requirements.
So notice his stress there, right? We got over time, the use of the designated quarantine sites may be temporarily discontinued until needed again by the Government of Canada, or may be used for other requirements. And he highlighted it. And it's like, it's very spooky that this happened. Right. Now, this is on section C, which he said, and he's pointed, it's got it like labeled right on the screen. If you go up to the top, objective, which tells you what is happening in this. And let me just phrase right at the front. This is a request for information, so it's not like this is government policy at all. They're just saying, hey, companies, do you have facilities or things like this that we could use in the case of an emergency? That's all this document is doing. But Ezra's freaked out because it says other requirements. What could those other requirements be, right? It's very mysterious. Well, if you go up to the top, where it says objective, it says, the Government of Canada is considering engaging a third-party service provider for federal quarantine/isolation sites that will be used to house and care for people for public health and other related federal requirements associated with COVID-19 pandemic response. Now, down here it just says other requirements, but it's the same language of related federal requirements, other related federal requirements associated with the COVID-19 pandemic response. So my guess is what happened here is they just didn't spell out all the details down here. It was sufficient enough for them to just say other requirements, because if you've gotten this far in the document, you know what the other requirements are. They're related to COVID-19. And my guess is that means things like stashing protective equipment for hospitals, storing the vaccine, or other things. Or maybe you need to staff hospital staff or put up in room and board hospital staff for some reason because of an outbreak or something, right? But and again, all you have to do is look on the screen and see what Ezra is putting out there, and it debunks itself. Hello, Nick and Famous Horse. Look at those emotes. We got Skeletor emotes. Skillapog. Nice. I didn't even know we had emotes at all. I guess you just get like normal emotes or standards. Oh, look, oh my god, I can post a cat with some sunglasses. Hell yeah. Anyways. So they just debunked themselves. Now, I covered this one on the podcast, and I just wanted to go over it for how, like, obviously stupid this is. And again, this is what Ezra brought to Alex Jones's show to convince the Alex Jones audience that, like, Canada is implementing these COVID internment camps where they're going to lock us all up for non-COVID related things. I don't know how afraid you guys are, but, like, oh no. Watch out, evil Justin.
I wonder how he feels about, like, the temporary hospitals being built in, like, Alberta now because of how bad COVID is. Like, that's technically a COVID camp, I guess. A hospital camp, temporary, like...
Yeah, he doesn't like any of them. I mean, he's mainly focused on Manitoba rather than Alberta. Because what's happening in Manitoba is there was this viral video that somebody went to a hospital and filmed, so in the news it was reported that the hospitals are being overwhelmed. So somebody went to Manitoba and started filming the hospital and showed that, like, oh look, it's not even busy. Now what the video didn't portray was that they went at, like, an off time where it would be less busy, but also they went to an area of the hospital where it wasn't a patient intake spot, right? And then, of course, because of that, they sent Kian Bexty out there to do the exact same thing. So they released a video just yesterday, I think, of Kian going, look, there's no one at this hospital, therefore COVID is a myth in Manitoba. Because they're assholes who don't care about a global pandemic, which is going to be obvious in the next clip.
I was going to say, Jody, when you asked how we feel about it, that I was shocked into silence. But now I'm just reading the first slide of this video you got queued up. I'm getting angry.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be on the next one too. So, yeah. And I love that because it goes censorship when it like plays the fucking thing. This one's great too. So this is another Ezra clip, and Ezra's going to be showing us stats that indicate that COVID deaths are not. There is no excess COVID deaths. Is basically his argument, or that they are, but it's mostly like old people. That's sort of the argument he's going to make.
Warning. Censorship.
Warning. Censorship.
Censorship. Warning.
You guys can hear it fine?
Yeah.
I've not been
CT5 by
censored.
CDC announced via U.S. Today that the total deaths in the U.S. did not budge and is in line year over years. The info started trending back in July.
He looks rough.
I'm drinking Dr. Pepper. Hiccups.
Are you fucking kidding me?
It's 12:56. Why don't we spend 2 minutes on that graph?
I know, it's so irrelevant to what we're going to do. We just had to show it. I love that.
Statistics Canada tracks a lot of unusual information. We're going to take a 2-minute detour. Weekly death counts. So what you see here, let me explain it. Thank you, Justin. Every colored line here is a different year. So blue is 2014. Orange is 2015. Green is 2016.
See, so far he's explaining things pretty accurately.
And then the year we're in now, 2020, is the dotted line. So these are weekly deaths.
And you can see the weeks listed at the bottom.
First week of January, second week of January, third week of January, and then you see February, March, April, right? So
Having a hard time.
You can see that the weekly deaths falls in the summer and rises in the winter. That's just how it is.
Yeah, it's just how it is.
Tide goes in, tide goes
Probably
out.
part of that. So on any given winter day, any given week in the winter, 6,000 Canadians die. Any given week in the summer, 5,000 Canadians die. You'll notice the left-hand axis here, it doesn't start at 0. So this is like a close-up. If you were to actually have it to scale and 0, you probably wouldn't even be able to see that curve very well.
So what he's highlighting there is kind of like how you can manipulate data to a certain extent. I mean, like, or manipulate the representation of data, right? So what he's saying is that because there is no 0 at the bottom here, it's like we're zoomed into this section, and it makes the dip in the summer more apparent than, say, if you started at 0 and like the thing was smaller, and it would just look more like a straight line, right? Because the dip would barely be registerable.
This I can say, from a scientific perspective, this is accurate. In fact, if the left-hand axis went from 0 to 10 million, it would in fact be a straight line.
Right. And so the thing is, though, I mean, it sounds like what he's saying is like you can manipulate these things, but like there's reasons why you might do that, which is that this gives you a graphical like they're not lying about the numbers on the side. So as long as you can read this graph fine, like it's not really manipulated, and it's just showing you that there is this kind of fluctuation, right? Because the fluctuation is real. On average, roughly 5,000 people die in the summer, and on average, roughly 6,000 people die in the winter per week. Now he's going to go on.
But it is noticeable that in April, deaths spiked. Do you see that? That's the dotted line. April 2020.
Almost like COVID's real.
It went from what is normally 5,000 deaths to 6,500 deaths. And we know that happened. By the way, look where the dotted line is now. It's lower than at any time in the last few years for this season. So there was the spike in April. Then things got under control in May and June. And now
The number of Canadians dying on any given week is the lowest it's been in years.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing everything right. You should keep it up.
What?
Yeah, I see nothing wrong with what he's highlighted. Yeah.
So, anyone want to take a stab at what sticks out in your mind? Why this might be a bit weird?
Well, there's a lot of lines and a lot of dates, and most of the lines seem to go to January. Yeah, like around the what is that, S3 January or whatever that is.
Right.
But there's a particular line that ends well before that, and that he defined as now.
Right. And not only that, so now to him is, I think, December 1st or 2nd.
Right.
And
Wait, what?
Well, now to him.
I thought this video might have been from September. I was like, okay,
No.
like he's being. Oh my god.
Well, I
No.
just see like the rest of them go to January, right? So it has to be from pretty recently.
So no, this is it ends. So the end date here is the end of September. So it doesn't include any October data, any November data, and he's filming this in December. And of course, when did the cases pick up again? That would have been October, November, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that's weird about this is I don't know. So there's a question to what extent this information is accurate, because from reading the StatsCan website, what happens is they release the data in chunks, and so we got the recent chunk I think it was like from June to September or something like this. But of course, those numbers are not going to be accurate, right? Because there's still more information that comes in over time. I think, in fact, there was if you look at like stats, like if you search COVID deaths, there's an early peak at the beginning of October that like shoots up. All of a sudden, we got 100 deaths, and it goes back to around 10 again. And that's because hospitals realized that they had an extra 100 deaths that were not accounted for like the weeks previous, right? And so what this number represents is just the information that they have at this time when they released these numbers in November, but like more information could catch up to it. And then eventually the next data dump, I think, will be in January again, and we'll get more information for the next following months. So it's not even an accurate representation. So that line could change, and it could end up being closer to the norm than whatever this dip is. But even if there is a dip there, I mean, that could be due to the fact that we were socially distant and other things, that it basically prevented us from getting other illness that we would normally get in any other normal year. Or maybe because more people are working at home, less people are driving to work, and that means that there's less car accidents. Like this number, like that dip could be a whole bunch of things related to the fact that we're protecting us from COVID-19. The last thing that I want to say, and I had a clever analogy about this, which is like, if we did absolutely nothing to protect ourselves from COVID-19, there's no reason to think that this peak here wouldn't have continued. So it dipped back down to the normal because we shut things down again and we're trying to quarantine ourselves, right? But if like you did nothing, it might have stayed up there, like what's happening in America, right? America didn't really have a pretty good dip. It kind of just stayed consistently, and now you're averaging over 2,000 deaths a day, still, and it's been going on like that for a while. And
all right, Florida, you don't need to add.
It's not you; it's your government. But but the thing is, like the analogy for me would be like, it would be like, say someone's standing in the middle of the road and a bus is coming straight like for them, and you say, "Hey, get out of the way! The bus is coming," and that person moves and doesn't get hit by the bus, and then Ezra will come to you later and goes, "You didn't have to tell him to move out of the way. Everything would have been fine." You know, because it's like, what he's saying is like, look, everything went back to normal. But that's only in a world where we actually did things. Where it's like, if we didn't do anything, in the analogy of the bus would have come and hit that person. But he's pretending like you shouldn't even like warned people in the first place.
Yeah.
See, and I also think that he's saying now, like, okay, yeah, see, we survived the bus. We're over the bus. You can step back out into traffic.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Exactly.
I was thinking it's like he would say, when at the moment that you shouted at that person to get out of the way, the bus hadn't even come close yet. So who can say what would happen had you not said anything? But we probably would have been fine.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have, because that bus clearly would have killed you. Now, I'm not going to go into the rest of this video. The rest of the video is him talking about. He breaks down some of the data in demographics because he wants to make the case that, look, most of the people who died here in the spike were all old, therefore this was okay somehow. Like, I don't really care about that argument. But yeah, my guess is, given that our numbers have steeply inclined since September, my guess is there's probably more excess deaths that are occurring now, and they're probably COVID related. There's a good estimate there. Now the next video I particularly chose because I know it's going to drive Elron insane. Not really.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Just I feel so, Elron likes the sciences and, understands academia and all that fun stuff.
The sciences, all the ivory tower, as it were.
He drinks the science juice.
Well, we're going to learn how censorious the, in scare quotes, ivory tower is.
This is true. The ivory tower does, in fact, like to censure things that are not science.
I also will say before we get into this is the newest addition to the Rebel team. We haven't shown any of her clips yet, but here she is, and she is an American. So yeah, she is.
No.
She is an American, MAGA-loving, anti-masker COVID denialist. So here goes.
Is it Caitlin Borisenko?
Might as well be. Maybe these two are friends. Maybe she's friends with Carlin. That would not surprise me. She strikes me as a walk away from the Democratic Party type.
All right, let's do this. I'm ready.
Censorship.
Censorship.
So the big question that many people are asking now that we're hearing about numbers spiking in the coronavirus pandemic, does the number of COVID-related deaths really have an impact on the amount of deaths across the United States?
Now, here's the thing. I understand what she's saying here in the context of the video, but I want to listen to that again just because when I first heard this, I was like, do the COVID-related deaths have an impact on deaths? And I was like, yes?
Listen. No, it's a simple math problem, right? Right? If Johnny dies and then Susie dies, does Susie's death really matter?
I think
if you die from COVID, do you die in real life?
No, you don't. It's a video game. You wake up.
And so this has to do with excess deaths, right? So what she's trying to say is the fact that we have excess deaths related to COVID or not. That's what she's trying to say, but that is not at all what she says. So we'll play it again.
Somehow that's even fucking worse, isn't it? So I'm like, are the people that died from COVID really dead from COVID?
Yeah. It says, are total deaths increasing in the U.S. from COVID? One study says no. So that's the title. And then got deleted. That's the title of this video.
They're paid actors.
Yeah.
Many people are asking, now that we're hearing about numbers spiking in the coronavirus pandemic, does the number of COVID-related deaths really have an impact on the amount of deaths across the United States? One Johns Hopkins scientist, right, trust science, did a study on it, and she found the answer to be no. That article was later retracted, but I'm pretty sure we all know why. Let's talk about it.
So,
all right,
what were the two claims? She's a scientist, and she got a study that was retracted.
Oh no! Oh no! No! Don't do it.
What?
Don't do it.
She's also just fucking bad at this. I just gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of like scripted thing that even a lot of them don't have down packed. I mean, like not even like Kean Bexty, who I feel has been doing it for a lot longer. Even he doesn't really have it down packed. But I mean, there is a presence with her that is at least a little bit more engaging than even Sheila Gunn Reid, who's just terribly boring.
Yeah. Well, Sheila set the bar so high. You know?
Yeah. But let's get into. So I think finish your thought, and then I'll go on.
Sorry. Like so far though, everyone. First 30 seconds. Better or worse than Drea?
Do I think that she's better or worse just on the first 30 seconds?
Yeah.
I like Drea better.
Better or worse at what?
Yeah.
That's a good question. It's a good question.
There's something about... Oh, sorry, finish Ken, and then I'll say mine.
I was just going to say, I don't get the same sort of, like, I'm reading this, but there's someone, like, with a gun pointed at me off camera making me say this. I don't get that vibe with this person.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel. I feel like Drea, like, is trapped. I don't feel like this person's is trapped. Again, 30-second judgment call, but I feel like Drea is better than this. I don't feel like this other person is better than this. You know what I mean?
But I feel like because of that, like Drea puts on more of a show. Like she gets like really like.
I like the show. I like the show. Though.
We're gonna get mysterious about it.
But
that's always
what
like Drea's disposition is like, what is happening? It's all.
But what we're saying is we love you, Drea, and thanks for watching.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for watching, Drea. Now we're going to address the first claim, which is this person is a scientist. So here it goes.
Hey, what's up? This is Kim Klasick for Rebel News in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, in Baltimore, Maryland, we have a reputable university called Johns Hopkins University, and at this university, we have many great minds that do studies each year. This young lady's name is Genevieve Briand.
Well, young lady, no offense, Genevieve Briand, I'm sorry. But okay. But one second, let's finish the thought.
And what she did was a study and found some data to figure out...
Okay, so we're gonna figure out the data in a second. So Genevieve Briand. Now, what was she described as? Scientist.
A scientist.
Who collects data. Now, they put the bio right up on the screen so you can see it, and this is what her bio has to say. Genevieve Briand is the Assistant Director for MS in Applied Economics Program. She has taught for the Applied Economics Program since summer 2015 and currently teaches microeconomic theory, statistics, and econometrics. Is that epidemiology or medical science?
No, but she knows how to count numbers.
Yeah.
Good with numbers. Yeah, gotta give her that. Good with numbers.
So she's an economist. And now we're going to go on to the next bit about it. And I mean, it's iffy whether or not I would count economists or scientists. I would lean towards no.
I would not.
Depends on, like, to what extent they're running experiments or other stuff like that. But anyways.
Economics is astrology for men, and I stand by that.
Or young women like Genevieve Briand.
What she did was a study and found some data to figure out if we are actually seeing a larger impact in deaths in 2020 than we saw in 2018. Her study found the answer to be no. Now,
her study found the answer to be no. There's absolutely no excess deaths, according to this. So, they did post the article from where this came from on the screen. And I'm going to read it to you, and you tell me how reputable this journal is, okay? You ready? This is the John Hopkins newsletter, published by the students of John Hopkins since 1896.
Sorry, can you read that one more time? Just one more time.
The John Hopkins newsletter, published by students.
Okay.
since
Yes,
1986.
I've heard of the Johns Hopkins newsletter. I remember submitting some of my research articles there. Got rejected, unfortunately. It's a very, very high-tier journal.
Oh my god.
Can I just interject real quick, because when sort of related, when her name came up, I thought I recognized the last name of our new Fresh Meat host, and so I did a quick search just to see if it was someone I knew. It's not someone I know, but it is a name I've heard before. I don't know if this is something you were going to mention towards the end of the video, Jody, but she is a congressional candidate in Maryland.
And she lost?
I don't really. Her Facebook page doesn't say one way or the other. It still lists her as both a journalist and congressional candidate.
It does not surprise me. My guess is she lost. But if she's working for Rebel now, that kind of tells me what happened to her political career, because she only got hired post the election. So, but yes, so we're looking at a student newsletter that they basically interviewed this woman, and her data study that she did was a non-peer-reviewed PowerPoint presentation that she gave. That is not included in the video, but the self-debunk here is the fact that you show on the screen where this data comes from, and it's a newsletter. It's not a journal. It's not scientific data. The person was involved in economics and is making this claim. So let's hear the rest of this video.
To be no. Now, she said because we see so many COVID-related deaths, it is honestly just because they are classifying those that also had COVID and other symptoms that could have killed them, like pneumonia, heart disease. They are still counting those as COVID-related deaths.
Did you catch that?
I feel like we hear this all the goddamn time. And I'm here to tell you, you have some cardiovascular problem, right? You have a heart murmur or something. You have some sort of atherosclerosis that might kill you. And you get hit by a bus and die. You didn't die from the heart attack. You died from the bus.
Yep. I mean, like, even it reminds me so much of like AIDS denialists. I don't know if any of you are familiar with these people, but they're people who believe that AIDS isn't real. And so, and part of their justification why AIDS isn't real is the exact same argument that they're making, which is that if you look at people who die of AIDS, they die of things like pneumonia or the flu. They don't die of AIDS. And that's because AIDS is it compromises your immune system, and it makes you more likely to die of something like the flu than people who don't have AIDS. Right? So you can look at that and go, well, no one's dying of AIDS, so therefore it isn't real. Which is almost like what they're doing with COVID here, where it's like, yes, COVID is more likely to kill you if you have other things, comorbidities, but that doesn't mean that the COVID doesn't kill you. You know? You wouldn't have died with those other things that you had if not for the introduction of COVID into that equation. Like, maybe eventually in the long term, these people will eventually die of whatever illness that they might have. But if not for the COVID now, they would have died much later. Like, we all eventually die much later.
Well, now, it's too deep. Just scale it back.
Now, I don't know about this Florida man killed in crash listed as COVID-19 death. My guess, so every time I've looked into these types of cases, it's the same shit. My favorite one is there's this one from the UK where a man fell off the ladder. And they're like, this man fell off a ladder. And then they like discovered he had COVID-19 and they counted it as a COVID-19 death. And his case was fascinating to me because he fell off the ladder. They then tried to resuscitate him and he passed away. They then sent him for an autopsy. And what they found was that there was no indication that he died because he fell from the ladder. He also got injured during the resuscitation process, and even that was ruled non-conclusive for killing him. And they found that his whole lungs were congested, and that was basically the cause of his death. And they were congested because of COVID-19. So even though he fell from the ladder, it's hard to say, like, was he having an attack, a COVID-19 attack while on the ladder and then fell? Or was there something about the falling that then exacerbated the congestion that he had and then caused him to die? But they list that as like, oh, here is a clear example of like people overhyping a COVID-19 death when it isn't really a COVID-19 death. When it's like, no, it was a weird but real COVID-19 death. So I don't know in this case, like my guess is given the influx of data, you're going to have some errors. So it's quite possible that this person died in a car crash completely unrelated to COVID and it got counted. But at the end of the day, who cares? These little anecdotes do not... you can't just take from this one little anecdote to extrapolate it to all of the COVID-19 data collection.
There was even an instance where someone was killed, unfortunately, on their motorcycle, and because they had COVID, that death was marked as COVID-related. So, we don't see a huge number of deaths in regards to this virus in general. I know a lot of people are scared when they hear the number 250,000. Just so people know, there are many people that die from the flu and pneumonia each year, unfortunately. Now, all those lives do matter. Trust me, they do. But in this instance, to shut down the economy,
we're just going to downplay it.
To tell small businesses that they can't run their business, to basically ruin Christmas for lots of children across the United States because their parents aren't working, I don't think we should be doing this. Now, this study was...
Again, I just wanted to pause there briefly to be like, don't go to Christmas. Don't breathe on your grandparents. I mean, like, these things are real. Like, it's so fucking stupid to say, like, yes, exactly what Nick is saying in the chat right now, which is that the economy is somehow more important than human lives. So, yes, over 200,000 people, we're now at 70,000 people died in America. And she's downplaying that like it's some sort of, people just die all the time. They die of flu. Oh, why are we so worried about this? When it's like, no, people are dying. It's really terrible. So now we're going to learn about why this thing was retracted. And it says, the article, A Closer Look at U.S. Deaths Due to COVID-19, published in the Science and Technology section on... It's a section of a newsletter. She's talking about it like it's a retraction from a journal. Science and News selection on November 22nd has been deleted.
Then retracted by Johns Hopkins University's editors. They said because they received so many letters saying, thank you for posting this article, I'm no longer wearing a mask, and they felt that they had to do their due diligence and retract the article so that people still adhere to the mask mandate. Now, this brings us to another fork in the road that I absolutely love. I thought we were trusting science.
Yeah.
Right? Are we making decisions based on science? Well, if science tells us
science.
that the number of deaths across the United States really hasn't been impacted by the coronavirus, shouldn't we trust that and go with that? So now, what do we have? We have science retracting some of the studies that they've done because it doesn't fit the narrative. We're not dealing with science here, ladies and gentlemen. We're dealing with a narrative. And because the narrative is that the coronavirus is so dangerous, we must wear masks, we must do social distancing, we must shut down bars and restaurants at 10 p.m., that we're going to retract this article as with a study showing that it has no effect on it whatsoever, but they're going to retract it because it fits the narrative. I am doing this video to just point out the fact that we're not following science. Not that we should be following science anyway. Science...
She's on fire.
It's so stupid. It's so, once you put it into the context of like what they're denying here, or like we know it was in a newsletter and we know it was not a study, and yet she keeps, and that information was presented on the screen, and yet here she is, study, article retracted, the editors, the editors of that student newsletter.
Oh. God, I apologize for screaming into everyone's ear, but you did it. You did it, Jody. That broke my goddamn brain. I have never wanted to take someone and throw them in front of Google and just type information into their flipping brains more than I ever have right now.
There was a time long ago, I'll make this brief, but I want to like draw sort of an elaborate metaphor. There was a time when I lived in Hamilton and I stumbled home from Hess Village after drinking a little bit too much, and I still got home in a much more linear fashion, that is to say, in a straight line, more so than she stumbled from point to point in that little rant that she just made.
I'm not drunk. I'm drunk.
Like, I mean, like, let's just one step back. One step back. What is the point of this, guys? Why? Why are you being such science denialists? Why do you want to pretend this isn't real? Why do you want to subject people to just the horrendousness of COVID? Why? What do you get from it? What is the benefit of having our intensive care units over flooded with people who don't think COVID's real, filling up beds that could be used for other people that have other sorts of sicknesses? What's the purpose of this? Why? Why are you doing this?
Elron, don't you believe that all deaths matter?
Yes. Yes. All dead people matter. Except for Hitler.
Yes.
But, like, we don't need to encourage more of them. We can keep some people alive, right? We can do that.
But how can you choose between one death and another?
But we're not even, like, choosing dead people over another. We're choosing, like, my ability to sell you products over, like, grandma dying. Like, really, at the end of the day, this is what's happening. And it's, like, just fucking disgusting.
Look, again, like, I know I just said it, but, like, it's not just grandma dying. The issue isn't just that grandma or grandpa are going to miss all of their Christmases at once if they get COVID. It's like, if grandma and grandpa get sick, and then, you know, your uncles and aunts get sick, and then your brothers and sisters, and all of them have to go to the hospital, and all of them have to go to the ICU. Hospitals don't have infinite beds in the intensive care unit. And so suddenly, if someone, you know, if you then get in a car accident, where can you go? There's no more beds in the ICU.
There's that. I mean, like, and I always forget as well about the long-term consequences that are happening to people who don't die from this thing.
Exactly.
And that, I mean, that's going to be something that we're going to have to struggle with as a society for a while, because we don't know the full extent of what this thing will do to you long-term.
Speaking of, the going theory my doctor has for my lung issues that have lasted for 9 months now is that it's, like, COVID related.
Yeah.
Probably. I know of quite a few people who, and again, this is in most of the major medical journals at this point, cases of, you know, x-ray images of people who had COVID, x-rays of their lungs, and you can see, like, all the damage that it's doing for months and months. One of my colleagues got COVID, and they were bedridden for, like, 2 months. And then they were, like, a long-distance runner. They're still not running as much as they were, and it's been 9 months. They got this in the beginning. It's scary. It's terrifying.
Elron, would you see any of those pictures and written statements and accounts in a paper as prestigious and as well known as the newsletter by the students of Johns Hopkins University?
That's a good point. Again, I'm pretty sure they were... What?
Checkmate. Take that,
That's true.
Science.
The undergrads at Johns Hopkins University clearly know better than the American Medical Association.
Oh my God.
They've blown this thing wide open.
Well, the American Medical Association is only trying to build a narrative after all.
All right, I'm gonna rewind it just a couple seconds so we can hear her praising science and then backtracking on science and then finish out this video because there's only like 20 seconds left.
Narrative. I am doing this video to just point out the fact that we're not following science. Not that we should be following science anyway. Science should be a recommendation, and then our elected officials should be making the decisions. But I just wanted to point out that we're not following science. Science is actually following the current narrative. I'm Kim Klasick for Rebel News in Baltimore, Maryland.
There you go.
Nailed it.
I thought she said her name was complacent for a second, and I was like, excuse me, why are you complacent in all this? Why are you complicit?
Oh my god. It's beautiful. It's she's a work of art.
We shouldn't follow science. All those vaccines, all those top treatments that we give for other diseases, no. Those are just recommendations. You don't need those. Robitussin that we all use, that's just a recommendation. You don't need cough syrup. You don't need antibiotics. Those are recommendations.
Yeah. Now we're gonna move off from COVID for a bit. Now that we're lower our blood pressure a little bit. Although this story, this story is just annoying. I guess it's not as infuriating as it doesn't have to deal with the deaths of many people. It does have to deal with racism though, and it's also being told by a convicted wife beater who is Avi Yamini, who's the Australian correspondent for Rebel News. So that's him in the top left of the video up there with the microphone in his hand, Avi Yamini. And I'm going to keep saying it. He's a convicted wife beater. And that means Ezra hired a convicted wife beater. Someone who is an asshole all around. So, I'm all for forgiveness, but at the same time, this guy's a convicted wife beater. So fuck him. And fuck him for working for the Rebel. But this video we're about to watch involves this guy right here. Looking like I don't know what he's looking like. Ha! But he is some guy named Sam Fletcher. Never heard of him before in my life. And apparently he got kicked out of Victoria University. You can see they're standing outside of the Victoria University building so that you know, here it is. But he got suspended from his program for... They're just going to describe what they think he was suspended for, and then we'll go see the self-debunk, if you will.
Sure?
Yeah, I'm quite sure.
Do you hate me?
Oh, wait, we missed the... you got to start off with a great joke. So Avi Yamini is Jewish? Pretty sure he's Jewish, so he worked for the Israeli Defense Force at some point. But here it goes.
Do you hate people of color?
No, mate.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm quite sure.
Do you hate me?
No, mate. Look,
You should. Nothing to do with my color.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know you that well. If you give me reason to hate you, we can go from there. That's fine.
So you don't judge people based on their skin color?
No, mate. No, I'm big on the liberal tradition, very cosmopolitan. So I like personal growth and excellence, and hang around good people. But apart from that, that's.
So you're not a white supremacist?
No, mate. I'm not a white supremacist.
Have there been any criminal charges laid against you? Any criminal investigation? Anything like that?
No, mate. No, there hasn't.
So they were able to take that all away from you, essentially, without any...
With impunity, yeah, that's right.
So have you learned anything from that exchange so far?
Well, it sounds like this poor gentleman has been run through the system without any due process. I can't imagine what he's done has been that bad to suspend due process.
I gotta say, I forgot how much I dislike Australian accent.
You're right, mate.
I also love... He said something like the liberal tradition, and it almost... I can't remember if he mentioned something about Western culture lately, but like part of me is just like, oh, so you're like a Western chauvinist. Like you sound like you're gonna be on that bent, which is like...
And in Australia, the Liberals are like the right party that is like super duper shitty and racist. So I don't know if maybe that's what he's referencing to.
Yeah, it might be that. Like, I took it as the kind of like, I'm a classical liberal kind of talk that you hear from people like Dave Rubin and all that shit. So my guess is Australia, just like Canada, like this, and the UK, this shit has infiltrated all of the English spoken cultures around the world. But now we're going to find out. Sorry, well, I'll let you finish, Ken, and then we'll find out what...
I was just going to say, I like the cut of this guy's jib.
Hello, Dave Rubin. Was that an attempt at a Dave Rubin?
That was an attempt at a Dave
Rubin. You needed a bit more airheadedness.
Ooh, I'll try.
Let's all watch V for Vendetta, fellas. All right.
We're here today at Victoria University
There
in
it is.
Footscray in Melbourne's West. I've come here to meet a man named Sam Fletcher, who was in a psychology course here till about a year ago. He'd spent 10 years studying psychology. He was in his last year of training when...
I want to know... That sounds super weird to me. I want to like reach out to any like Australian people to be like, how long does it normally take to do a degree? Why was this guy in school for 10 years?
Maybe they were getting a PhD?
I think he got suspended when he was doing his master's.
Oh.
Which means it's like 10 years up to that point. So, like, I don't know. It's very weird to me. Again, here's the thing is, there's going to be some details of the story that I can't look into because any keyword searches or searching that I've tried to do on the internet to figure out about this thing all links back to this story that Avi and Minnie did. So we're stuck with just the content of this video. Unless I had like super credentials and I'll call up Victoria University and was like, how much do you want to tell me about the Sam Fletcher, bro?
Sam sent a private Facebook message in banter to a classmate that he thought they were friends.
She and I were chatting. She was going to this safe space event to explore something about Asian sexuality, and I was not too sure what that was all about, so I cracked a tongue-in-cheek joke.
So here's what his tweet reads. It's got a giant thumb up and then says, well, I saw you're interested in going to a special Asian sexploration event. I guess I was just wondering, well, if Asian people have different ... bits, you know, ... whispers down there.
Oh, no.
So that's what he said to the person.
Uh-huh.
And, I mean, but notice his framing as well, calling it a safe space event. I mean, nothing about this tweet indicates that this was like a safe space event. It sounds like it was just about Asian sexuality or something like that. But that's the tweet. Or not tweet, private Facebook message.
Trust me, I've said a lot worse to a lot of my
I believe
friends.
Avi
That
Yemeni
used to
has
be
said a
the
lot
Aussie
worse.
way.
The convicted wife beater.
Yeah, and we joked about.
So now what they're going to do is they're going to show a series of tweets. We don't have to go through them, but they're all supposed to indicate that, look, I've messaged this woman before, or friend before, and this has never been an issue. Look, we were totally friends. Look at us joking. We're sending images back and forth to each other. This is kind of the context that why they're showing these images.
About shit all the time. It's not like, you know, we were just, and she's turned around and said, oh, we were just classmates, we were never friends. And I've got records. No, we were, you know.
Now, the message was taken badly by the classmate, so Sam did apologize. He was remorseful.
So he goes, this is the tweet of the apology. So he goes, look, I just didn't understand why anyone would need to attend an event about that topic based on a specific cultural experience. I thought it would be a funny segue into a conversation about it. The person responded, okay. And then he responded, I'm really sorry, though. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. And then they responded, our cultural experiences are different, Sam, and I accept your apology. So that's that exchange.
Okay.
Fair enough.
He didn't mean it like that. He meant it as a joke.
It was a stupid thing to say. I'm not here to, you know, defend, you know, saying stupid things to defend people. But I don't think losing a career 10 years in the making is an appropriate response to that. The first thing that happened was that I was immediately suspended from my studies. I was due to graduate in 2020, so about now, yeah.
So this was the end of your studies, kind of the practical hands-on part.
That's right, yeah. So I'd had a few clients that I was working with and, you know, developed some pretty good relationships with them to the point where I had them calling me and...
Just the fucking, like, look at us. We're going to zoom in on this van that says Victoria University for this fucking shot.
Yeah, I was going to say, they've dispersed these weird staging shots throughout this whole thing that's really, really fucking confusing to me.
Yeah. We're going to go back here. So these are the documents. They're kind of hard to make out, and it's a bit blurry. I don't know if it's blurry because of latency issues or something, but it was much clearer before. But you can see like there's huge chunks blocked out, and most of these are to block out identifying information for the victim in this case. Now, if you read it here, it's basically lining up sort of the basics of the parties involved, and then it gives you kind of like the university sort of like policies and stuff that he potentially were violated, and then at the bottom it's blurry here, but it says decision, and it lists like what the university believed that he violated. Now, one of them is like just violating the rules of the university. One of them is also breaking their orderly conduct policy. The other two lead me to believe that there must be more to this, because they are threatening injury or harm to another student or faculty member. And then it's like engaging in harmful behavior which could result in injury or harm to another person or the self is the last one as well. Which means, like, I don't know that the university would rule that tweet engaged in activities that could potentially harm someone, especially in terms of physical injury, which is how they list it there, physical injury. And so the other thing is, so that's one part, and then they're going to go on for a bit. I think eventually they show... Maybe it's not popping up here.
Sorry, I'm just curious, and I don't know if they mentioned it in the video, but I know in the online version of this article they mentioned that the person that Sam had the exchange with, they say outright that she didn't accept the apology and she filed an official complaint with her university. Is that in that document, or like, because I don't know how they would disclose that or figure that out.
Yeah, so this actually part of that is said here. So if you look up at the top of the page, there's this huge there's a huge big blue bar. You probably can't read it, right? But it does say that it says something like that it's about to go into detail about what happened. And you notice this is the first time where like I feel like the revel is catching on now. But like I honestly think what happened here is the student involved, Sam Fletcher, really doesn't want whatever is under this blue bar to be spread by Rebel News, and so I feel like he preemptively blurred it out as opposed to Rebel doing it, because as we've seen through Rebel's content, they're pretty they don't give a shit, they just throw it up there. But there's a huge chunk here that's missing, and that's very interesting. But the next paragraph under there, and again it's blurry here, but if you watch it on your own computer that isn't having whatever problems my computer is having currently, it basically says that the woman did not accept, like he claims that they were just friends, but that was clearly not the case indicated by the complainant, is what it says. And then it lists the penalty. And then the interesting thing is part of the penalty is he's suspended for a year and can like reapply after the year or something like that. So long as he like makes amends or follows through with the steps that they have listed, which included something like seeing a psychologist for a while or something along those lines. So, I mean, the other part of this framing here is that somehow this like railroaded a 10-year career and he can never get it back, and that's why he went to go do something else. When it's like, no, I mean, it's pretty clear in this policy. He had every right to continue in his studies later by making amends with whatever this thing is. But then there's the fact of it clearly wasn't just the text message that caused a bunch of problem. There is clearly ongoing harassment. Oh, actually, that was the one other thing. I mean, it's hard for me to do this now that I'm surrounded with this blurry image. I wish I took a screen cap. But there was one section where it clearly states that there was two things that happened. One, and I'm pretty sure it was on the other side here. Yes. So at the very top here, it says the person, Samuel Fletcher, he harassed, and then it blanks out the victim's name here. And then it said, in the Victoria University Psychology Clinic. So he harassed the victim in the Victoria University Psychology Clinic. And then it says, and on social media. So what does that tell you? If they put an and there, it's not and or it was like they're conflating the two, like he was texting while in the psychology clinic, right? It's saying he harassed her in real life in the psychology clinic and on social media. And then on the next still, again, what happened between them is completely blurred out here. So even when they go through the detail to hide some information, there's other parts that they show on the screen that indicate that what they're showing here is not true. Yep. And then they get to play it off like this poor white male who just made an insensitive joke and it just ruined 10 years of his life he spent doing his psychology degree.
God.
Now, I don't think there's much else to show from the video. I mean, we get some nice,
to
the
point where I had them calling me, and I just wasn't
in.
allowed to pick up the phone. And on top of that,
this is my favorite, though.
I
Some of
wasn't
the
even
stock
allowed to
footage
step foot on campus because apparently
Another...
the joke that I made
Look,
was
it's still
so bad
Victoria.
that they felt that I was a threat to the student body.
Do you think the roles were reversed and she, as a person of colour...
So they...
What the actual fuck?
Is this just stock footage of a random woman walking?
He mentioned person of color, and it's a black woman walking down the street. Stock footage.
Jody, actually, which university did this take place at again?
The University of Victoria in Australia.
Oh, I didn't know. I couldn't tell.
Oh, do you need more footage?
Yeah,
do you need a close-up on the campus map?
Can we just watch the stock footage real carefully to see if it has any Australian characteristics?
I don't think this is Australia, but
it can't be Australia. It's not upside down.
Yeah.
And a female made a derogatory joke to you in a private Facebook.
What do you think they typed in to the stock video searcher to find these? Were they just brown hands typing?
What I want to know is it's clear that they pay into a stock footage supplier because they use it in all their videos. But why can't they just have Avi Mini interviewing the bloke? Why do you need to add in the stock footage all the time? If anything, it throws me out of their videos. I'm always just why are you showing me random clips of random fucking people all the time? Remember that one where the dude in the hazmat suit is slowly lowering himself on the wall because of while they were talking about COVID or whatever? I don't get the need to do this.
Message. Do you think the university would take it the same way?
No, I don't think they would, and unfortunately,
it's because
I think
I'm a white
that's
male.
probably indicative of a broader culture within this university, as well as universities in Australia and across the Western world.
See there.
Which university?
Yeah, Victoria. You can tell it's on the wall. But you notice what he said there. There's a culture across Western culture that just silencing speech, and then they're going to show some footage of
there have been some
people protesting
political ideologies which have become very popular and very powerful, and I'm
and here's the thing, I've no context of what that incident was, but I probably, given that it's the rebels showing that clip, my guess is I side with the protesters in this instance.
Yeah.
We don't have to watch the rest of it. Nothing else gets said in it. It's all just poor me, white dude, and they took away 10 years of my life kind of bullshit. And that's what we got. But again, Rebel loves doing this thing where they will share with you the information that debunks their whole thing. It's I almost don't need to do research for a segment like this. Sometimes on the podcast I do have to do a little bit of research because Ezra will say something that is a bit out there and I'll need to go find the sources and stuff like that. For example, the UK man falling off the ladder, COVID death. I'll have to do a bit of research there. But something like this, all I had to do was read the screen, Pause the video and read the letters that they themselves post on the stupid fucking videos. So that's that. Any final thoughts about this stream?
Do you think Avi Yamini was really happy when his Rebel News microphone arrived in the mail?
Yes.
And where do you think it arrived from?
Do you
I
think
wonder where they make those.
Do you think that they made it, or that they forced him to buy the microphone himself and just mailed like stickers?
Ooh, I wonder.
But I don't know. He must have had it for a while, because I feel like if I'm not mistaken, he was sent to Hong Kong as like a contractor at one point. I mean, they might still be contractors now, because I don't know how Ezra's running his business. I don't have access to that information. But they talk about him as if, like, before they contracted him and sent him out to Hong Kong. This time, he's now, like, a correspondent and makes frequent YouTube videos for them. So that makes me believe he's seen, at least visually, as being more than just a contractor. He's now a part of the Rebel team, as it were. And whenever they have, like, big events, like when they were covering the election coverage, they had like him with the rest of the crew looking all like newsman, so it's a thing now. He's a part of the team. They put a wife beater on the team and gave him a fancy microphone or stickers to put on a microphone. But either way, I usually avoid his content because it's weird. Like, think about this in context, because we cover some of the COVID shit, and the COVID shit here is really bad because our governments didn't lock down and people are still dying, and dying quite a lot. And in Australia, they locked down quite sufficiently such that they don't see the increase. And so it's like weird debunking his content because he's freaking out about the lockdown, yet he is in a far better position living in Australia now because of that lockdown. And to see him fight against it is just kind of like silly, because most of Australian society, from what I see, and even the footage of him, is against him. Like, their rallies in Australia do not look big at all, like the anti-mask rallies. And I wonder if part of that is like the people are realizing, like, we don't have that big of deaths right now. We've pretty much got this thing under wraps, So it's weird seeing him flail about, which is why probably he's now on this beat to cover non-COVID related shit, like some random dude who got suspended from a university for making a racially insensitive comment to a colleague. What a great use of resources. Rebel News. Yeah. Anyways, we are done. I'm going to end the stream by both promote my Patreon. I would appreciate it if people would want to donate to the Patreon. I'll throw it in the chat. I put in some effort to finding these things, and it takes time, but also it would be nice to have better equipment and eventually to spice up these streams. I've tried to fix some of the... I might have to eventually change my background image, although I must say I do love the Hieronymus Bosch imagery that surrounds me, but maybe I have to mix it up so that I might need like black space down in the right corner here, so that the chat comes up a lot better, because I can't find a color scheme that contrasts decently with that image down there, sadly. But I'll start improving things, spend more time on it. But if you wouldn't mind sending me some helping bucks, I would appreciate it. I'm not very good at promoting myself, so I feel like I should take the opportunity at the end of the show to say a few things about that. And as always, because we care on this stream, we're going to throw up as well 1492 Land Back Lane. We're going to keep promoting this fund. They're also, again, asking for more supplies as winter is coming in. They needed firewood and stuff such as that. We also promoted it on the show this week because Ezra used this woman's euthanasia death to try to claim that somehow these COVID lockdowns are causing people to kill themselves, when really this was something this woman had planned for a long time. And in her obituary, she promoted Land Back Lane. And we thought that was based as fuck. And so for Nancy Russell, consider donating to Land Back Lane as one of her dying requests. So yeah, that's it. And anything from the chat? You want to say goodbye to everyone?
Bye. Have a good night.
COVID is real and wear a mask.
Yeah. COVID is real.
That too.
Wear a mask. And what was I gonna say? And don't find a way to make Christmas creative this year. I'm not seeing my family for Christmas. On both sides of our family, we've made this known, and it kind of sucks. But my parents realize how serious this is. My partner's parents realize how serious this is. And so it's serious. And I don't want my parents to die, and they want to live long enough to continue to see their grandkids into the future. So it just makes a ton of sense to wear a mask and to socially distance and Zoom call Christmas. Maybe set up the Zoom and you can make a turkey, and you can have your family making a turkey on their end, and you can joke about how poorly you're making a turkey or something. Have some fun with it, But don't give your parents COVID, or grandparents for that matter. And I was gonna raid somebody, but there's no one I'm following who seems to be online right now, other than Hassanabi. But yeah, Hassan doesn't need any followers. Isn't he one of the biggest channels there? And I would promote Vinyl Junkies, but last time I tried to raid Vinyl Junkies, it wouldn't let me. Maybe I'll try that now. And if it tells me I can't, I will say you should follow Vinyl Junkies anyways. Vinyl Junkies is he's basically a dude in Montreal who just listens to vinyl records, and he's chill as fuck and a pretty cool dude. And it's fun just to listen. And he's, he really, really likes music, and he just plays some obscure stuff. Sometimes he'll set up a disc on his thing, and he'll put candles on the record, and so when it's spinning, you can just see the candles moving around. So he's pretty cool. But last time I did this, it says I cannot raid the channel. So I cannot raid them, but I'll point to it. Here, Vinyl Junkies, up there. Go have fun over there. Have a good one. Donate to the Patreon, donate to Landback. See you later.